I'm not quite sure if this is true, but one of the tour guides, so I did a couple different tours, and one of the tour guides was saying that it's really difficult or impossible to permit something that is a historical building or over a certain age. I don't know what designates it as historical. It wasn't like a register or anything. But if there's an old building, they cannot do upgrades to it. And so there was a lot of buildings that had fire damage. And you can see that in some of my footage as I'm standing on the little roadway that kind of goes up to the overlook. That there's a building there that's totally destroyed. And it's this building that is right there in this beautiful location, overlooking the river. Beautiful location, but it's all torn apart from fire damage. And I saw that all over the place. These great real estate locations, fire damage. There was also a lot of buildings as I was walking by that were kind of boarded up or had broken windows, and if you peered in, it was all just trash inside. Like trash, rotting wood, drywall pulled down, like nobody's been in there for decades, centuries. I don't know. It's downtown in Porto, which I know is only recently revitalized. And it reminds me of those €1 Italian houses that they're saying, hey, you know, people are immigrating out of Italy or they're moving to the cities where there's more jobs, and so these little towns don't have as many people, and it's a dying population, and so they're selling the houses for €1 as long as you live in it and you renovate it within 3 years. And I sometimes go in the news stories like looking at how is it going for these people who have these €1 houses. And it's hard work, it looks like, because they're really torn down. And the ones in Portugal are the same sort of thing. They're downtown, they're great locations, but they're probably worthless because they're just so out of date. They don't have any utilities, HVAC, plumbing, things like that. And then you would have to do so many hundreds of thousands of dollars or euros to update these little houses. Or big houses. And they're like, the ones in the city are tiny and vertical, and they don't have elevators, so it would be, you'd need a crane to like lift furniture into the house at the top. So I saw a lot of that. Portugal actually reminded me of Italy a lot, like a more run-down, very cheap version of Italy. Not as many tourists, obviously. Beautiful vineyards, beautiful scenery. It's definitely got that history and that culture there that you would expect when you go to Italy, but very cheap. Every time I paid for something, I wanted to be like, please charge me more and use this to fix your city. Everything was just so cheap. In fact, in one of my videos, you hear a woman asking her husband, hey, how much do you think I paid for all of this? And when she said €3 or whatever, he was like, what? Because everything's just so cheap. It also hasn't been maintained. And so you can tell, even like where the Olympics were, they call it the Olympic Park, but it's a neighborhood or an area that's by the airport. And it from far away it looks great, but you get up close and everything is rusty and gross and just like very used, and could just have some storefronts there, something that kind of revitalize it. So it's like upsetting to me as a civil engineer to see this in disrepair and think like, oh, this could be a huge tourist destination or hub if they had that money there, but it's obvious they're one of the poorer countries of the EU. And you can see that definitely by walking around. So anyway, back to Porto. Porto is known for the port wine. The port wine, I guess, is not drank a whole lot in Portugal. It's only really in Port. And my Portuguese coworkers had the feeling or assumption of like, oh, it's Port trying to be cool and like trying to have a thing that is their thing, which it is pretty much their thing because it is distributed worldwide and everybody knows what Port is, even if people don't like it. And some people really don't like it. But yeah, I thought it was fun to kind of go and like see the wine tours, and I went into the wine cellar and I did all of that. I don't think I have any video of that I can show you. Okay, so they're downtown Porto. You've got Porto, then you've got the Douro River, and there's the Douro River Valley, which I didn't get to go and see, but apparently it's very beautiful and has a lot of history and lots of geomorphology, so I do want to get the chance to go at some point. But there's the Douro River that kind of goes next to Porto, and then on the other side of the Douro River is Gaia, which is a whole different city, but that is where they have the silos that house all of the wine. which is a part of the port process in getting the wine able to drink. So port is they pour brandy in it so that it stops fermenting, and it retains that really high alcohol content because of the brandy, and it also retains the high sugars because as wine is fermenting, the higher the alcohol, the lower the sugar, because the yeast and the bacteria or whatever it's called, they eat the sugar in order to produce alcohol. And so normally high alcohol, low sugar, or vice versa. In port, it has both high sugar and high alcohol. So it is very much a dessert wine, and you would drink just like a little bit of it. What I didn't know is that there's whites, reds, there's dry ones, there's the sweet ones, of course. So there's all sorts of types of port. And I actually brought a couple back home with me that I still have. I was going to drink them at the 4th of July party, but there's never a good time to pull out a really high alcoholic sweet wine. So it's definitely going to be like a after dinner, like dinner party sort of evening that we drink that. So the videos that you see of kind of looking down over the river, that's Porto that you see on the other side. So I'm actually standing in Gaia looking across the Douro River into Porto. It's just beautiful, and to me, there's no difference between Porto and Gaia. In fact, all the caves and the wine cellar, which they called the cave, and all of that is on the Gaia side anyway. Alright, so since I'm a weird traveler, I actually take some notes when I'm on tours, and then I kind of repeat them, or I have conversations about them in order to try to remember them better. So the port is aged in Gaia, so that's the process of when it's in the big silos, and hopefully I can find some photos to show you of the silos you can see all over the place in Gaia. So it's there to age, and they age it in a Portuguese oak, which is a protected species, and I guess it's only obviously found in Portugal, but that's what they use for aging the port wine. You, as I said, would drink it after dinner, and it's sweeter. The ones you drink after dinner are the younger port wines, but I guess if you have an older one, you can have it as a digestive before dinner. Let's see. What I found interesting was that each year they mix a little bit of wine with the new batch of wine. So technically they've got hundreds of year-old wine that's being mixed in by a mathematical fraction, but not necessarily there is a drop of wine that is that 100-year-old wine, but it retains the same flavor by doing that mixing process. The other thing that I found very interesting was that because of climate change, everything's getting hotter and hotter, obviously, in the universe, but because of that, the grapes are growing differently, and because it's grown at a hotter temperature, the grapes are sweeter. So the sweeter wine produces a better wine. So because of climate change, they're getting better wine. So, lots of bad things about climate change, but at least there's one good thing. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. So in the Duro Valley, they have very difficult winters. Just about 3 months, very difficult. But at night, it's all on a schist rock, which is a type of metamorphic rock that looks really cool and kind of sparkly if you ever get to see it. It's like a little bit marbled, but sparkly. So I don't know where in the spectrum it compares to granite. I'll have to look that up. But the schist rock at night releases heat up to the plants, and so the plants can have roots that are 8 feet long, just kind of going through the fractures in the rocks. And they also reflect sunlight under the rocks. I'm imagining it's because of the quartz and the other things that are kind of shiny in the rocks that helps to reflect that sunlight into the roots and get the the heat down there.
Senti o teu olhar. Fiquei assustada. Tanta grandeza, tanta potência. Desde esse dia que agarrastes o coração e que entrevi o caminho rico e sinuoso de amor nascente. Pensei.
A digital twin, which is basically you've got your physical twin, which is your distribution system or whatever your system is. In this case, a water distribution system that is out there and has sensors and all sorts of things in it. Then you've got your digital twin, which is exactly the same as the physical, but it's not that would typically that would just be a model, but what makes it the twin is that it is taking real-time data from the sensors out there and using it to either recalibrate or understand what's happening operationally out in the system. So let's say there's a pipe break. Normally you would wait until, you wouldn't know about the pipe break until somebody saw it like spouting out of the ground. But what if in the digital twin, your sensors are starting to recognize that something is a little bit different before that big explosion event, and you can go and send crews out and fix it. So that's the use of the digital twin operationally. You can also kind of look at little finite things like non-revenue water loss. So non-revenue water loss is basically just water loss. I don't know why they started calling it non-revenue water. It's a term that's come up, and I think it's kind of probably going out soon. But yeah, the non-revenue water is basically water loss, and you could, if you've got a digital twin, you can begin to see that, oh, you've got unusual billing or something unusual is happening that would ring a bell. Of course, let's say somebody is like really watering their car. And that comes up as like, oh, water break. You would have to have enough data and good enough algorithms to be able to understand, is it just water loss? Is it a new leak? Or is it somebody watered their car? So lots of different methods to do that. And I know we're still trialing out many more, but the clients or the users that we have that have the operational capabilities with the digital twin, they love it, because when there's something that goes wrong, they know exactly where to fix it, where to send crews, which houses are going to be out of water. Then they can let the people know at the houses, hey, your water is going to be off for the next few hours. Here's your estimated time to fix it. And just overall, a lot more transparency. To me, that equates to equity. If you're able to tell people without them having to search for information, like, hey, your power's out, or hey, your water's out, then that is more equitable than only the people who have money or resources or time. Because obviously, if you're out of water, that is a basic need. And if you're out of water for a long time, that could be a huge problem. And so only the people with money and resources would be able to sustain an event like that. So to me, I love that ability of the digital twin to do that. And so, yeah, I think I got on this tangent because Porto actually has a digital twin, and they want to have one dashboard or one sort of system that has water, wastewater, stormwater, everything right there on their systems in the digital twin together. I'm not quite sure. I've heard a lot of talk about it, but I'm not quite sure if they have that or if they're just, that's like their milestone of like where they're going towards. But if I go back to Porto, that's what I want to do, is tour their system. So I am excited for my next trip to Porto already.
Opa, lá, por cima. Já tá. Já foi. Já foi. Já foi. Já foi. Olha a água. Fica à vontade.
Que nunca nos devemos nos esquecer de quem é cada de nós dois para não.
I just looked over and this is the view. It's amazing. Look at that. There's like all sorts of vineyards and farms. And then, oh, over here, oh, you can't hardly see it with the exposure. There's two big chimneys, which I read somewhere that is how they used to like roast animals back in the day. So anyway, I'm gonna show you that.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what?
while we're walking down this gorgeous walkway. Look at this. And it's got the chimneys in the background. I should say that at lunch I went to a place that is a famous chef, and he's prepared a bunch of dishes just for this place. And at lunch they have what's called the business executive lunch, which I think is fancy talk for lunch special. But it came with a glass of wine, so I have had a glass of wine. And let's see, it had wine. I got the soup, the vegetable soup. They do a lot of pumpkin-based things, and cabbage soup, which I think is a Porto sort of. That is interesting. There's a sticker with crosshairs. Yeah, I think that's a Porto thing, the cabbage soup. The called Duro Valley or something like that, which I did not have in Porto, but maybe I did. Anyway, the soup I had here, and then I had the vegetarian option. They had 3 options, and so I got the mushroom risotto. Look at these holes in the wall. These are called seep holes, and it's so water can kind of come out of the retaining wall here after this bus passes. This cute little cottage. Everything is so cute. This is like Italy or Tuscany, but way cheaper and way less crowds. And I just think that's amazing. I should not cross on the curb here, but anyway, this is the retaining wall. And so it's got those little seep holes in it. All right, back to my lunch. So what else did I have? I had the mushroom risotto, which was so good. And then they had the option between, those little tuk-tuks are everywhere. They had the option between pastel de nata, which is the custard dessert of Portugal, which I guess the story goes that back in the day, monks used the egg whites to do laundry, and so the egg yolks were left over, and that's how they came up with the custard. In Lisbon, it's pastel de Belém. So I'm gonna try that, and we'll see how different it is. But yeah, so I had a chocolate cake instead of that, because I had one of those. I'm at a little park. It reminds me of the parks in Europe from when we lived there when I was little. I guess I won't take them out, but I was going to show you that I bought some things for the house. I bought a few numbers for the outside and the mailbox. They're not really big enough for house numbers. There were some bigger ones, but I just didn't think that the style matched what I was looking for, since it's going to be kind of like Tex-Mex style / modern, and this is all very European, neoclassical. So I did not get any big ones. I still need to get some of those. Look, you can see the chimneys up there. They're 33 meters tall. This is gorgeous. Look at these clay water pipes. At least I assume that's what those are. They had them all over in Roman times. That's what they used. And ones that are starting to surface, so it's eroding around them, you can kind of see. Ooh, this is like glass. I'm looking for a well, which I've been told represents the concentric circles of hell. So, it's like an aquarium. So spooky.
Nunca, nunca nos desencontrar. Eu sou e tu és. Eu sou e tu és. Tens necessidade de viver comigo ou sem mim. Eu sou e tu és. Eu sou e tu és. Sou lua, tu és sol. Sou noite quando tu és dia. Tudo que aqui me parece suave, quero escrevê-lo na página do teu corpo. Tudo que aqui me parece chama, quero escrevê-lo na página da tua alma. Eu sou e tu és.
And I'm sort of thinking that if they can do all of this out of stone and concrete, I can do my counters out of concrete. I just have to form it up really well. I can't tell on some of this, it looks like it was not carved and just put in. This definitely looks more carved though. I have no idea what style this is. It's beautiful. Look at this cat. So I really like that color of concrete, and God, everything's just so beautiful. And so it's sort of, I don't know, it's more expensive than if you were to do like an engineered quartz or even regular quartz or granite, which performs really well as a countertop, but most of the labor, or most of the cost is in the labor, not in the actual materials themselves. And so if I could do the labor myself, it would be really cheap for counters. So I might do it, see if it looks good, and then after that, if it doesn't, I can have an actual engineered stone put on top of it. But I might as well try, right? It's my house, I do what I want. But yeah, I'm being very inspired by this Moor's castle. I'm in Sintra, Portugal, which is about an hour west of Lisbon. And it's so gorgeous. Look at all of this. And there's tuk-tuks that are bringing people up and down. And tons of towers and other things. I don't know if you can see that. And beautifully manicured landscapes. It reminds me of a job we did in Missouri next to the Mississippi River for a railroad company that had this like huge private estate that was adventurous like this for their executives back, when the railroads ran the country. Their executives would go to the estate and have these fancy gatherings. So they had like conservatory and these huge houses on the property, and we were kind of moving around trying to find the wells so that we could do sampling. And I had an iPad with GIS. Look at this little well here. These are not the types of wells that I was looking at there. They were actually deep dug wells that they used to power the steam on the steam engines. So, this place is so cool. I just love all of the flowers. And of course, there's huge castles. Look at that, that's insane. I'm glad I came out to Sintra. I only had half a day, and so I'm not going to see anything else, the other castles or the National Palace or the things that I think tourists go and see, but I'm glad I did this one. Okay, I wanted to show you this water fountain here. I've seen some people filling up their water bottles. There's water fountains that are gorgeous and very different from each other on the whole walk up. And I've seen a lot of people filling up their water bottles. But there's no telling if this actually comes out of pipes and it's got chlorine residuals or not. And so it's too close to surface for me to be drinking it. Those are the Portugal tiles that are everywhere. But I just wanted to show you a close-up of some of this stonework here. And then this looks like it's older or maybe just less maintained. And this is the tile. I think I can do that. So I figured this water was not drinkable. I'm in a little fountain. There's a bunch of these all up and down the street, and they all look very different. But this one says Let's be honest, I don't know what it says. But I'm assuming it means it's not controlled or it's not potable. And that makes sense if it's just coming down out of the mountainous region here, then I would not expect it to have a chlorine residual in it. But that has not stopped people from going up and refilling their water bottles. I've seen quite a few people do it. Maybe it was that one that didn't have that sign, and so they probably thought that it was fine. So, yeah, I would not be drinking this water. There's a lot of water I do drink. Like in Austin, when there was the boil water notice, I drink the water. But if it's surface water and it hasn't been treated, for some reason I feel like that risk is much higher. And just because I'm sure it's got E. coli in it. And I don't know if my immune system is that good. So that is water that I don't drink. What's interesting here is that there's so many different types of vegetation. Look at this. We've got this like mountainous stuff over here. And then up there you've got these huge cacti. There's moss everywhere. It just feels like I'm in every type of climate right now. It's just so beautiful. I know I keep saying that, but it's just so beautiful. That's it.
Eu sou e tu és. Tens necessidade de viver comigo ou sem mim. Eu sou e tu és. Eu sou e tu és. Sou água, tu és mar. Sou grande, mas tu és gigante. Tudo que aqui me parece suave, quero escrevê-lo na página do teu corpo.